And good afternoon once again, everyone, and welcome to today's Blueforce Basic Reporting and Exporting Data webinar. It's a part of our Mastering Blueforce, the weekly series. This one's for the week of April the 10th. Now, as we do with all of our sessions, we currently have everyone muted. So if you have any questions or concerns, please do me a favor, put in your question into the control panel, in that questions area, and then go ahead and just hit send. I'll be able to see that question and address it at the appropriate time. As a reminder as well, we do have these sessions, so we do ask that you pass on to your fellow team members. Sorry about that. So that way we can actually ensure that everyone is obviously up to date on all the Blueforce knowledge and tools that we offer, and obviously they can more soon, little by little, master that Blueforce system. Now we do actually offer these every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, until further notice. And as I mentioned, every webinar, I do record these and put them onto YouTube, which you can always go back and refer and watch later. And also documentation is provided online as well following this session. Now, for today's session, we are going to be focusing strictly on the concept of reporting and kind of getting data out of Blueforce. The big question always comes up is what report can I run? What report are available, what reports are available, and questions along those lines. So our session today will be starting off on basic reports as they relate to time cards and timesheets. I'm going to go through an attendance report out there that might be beneficial to a few of you, and then actually show you some of the exportable reports that we have available. Now, I will tell you, just for the sake of time and trying to get everything into a 50, 55 minute, an hour time frame, I won't be going through every single report that's available. There's tons of reports in the system. I've pulled out a few of them that I felt that were probably the easiest and most useful, I guess you could say, out of the system. And then if time permits, I may go back in and just add a couple slides, I guess, to this, just kind of go through and go some other options and avenues. But we're going to do the bare minimum, the basic reporting out of the system. I'm also going to show you how to do some exporting of grids, basically how to export the time card view and how to pull some time exports out of the timesheet view. And then we're going to talk about ad hoc reporting, what that is. And then lastly, just give you a real brief overview of an introduction into Hubble. And so all this is kind of on top of today's webinar. So let's get rolling. So kind of I mentioned is our first key point here is just a basic reporting. And obviously, to be able to start running reports, you have to kind of know where to find them in the system. Now, working with Blueforce is a very, very easy, simple system to use. It's not difficult at all. The hard part of it is kind of determining what you need and kind of finding it in the format that you requested in. That is where it becomes a little tricky. So I'm going to hopefully help you with some of those issues today on this call. So first thing is our kind of like I said, navigation, how to get to those reporting. But let me first pose this question. How many of you on this phone call have made this face when you're trying to find some information in Blueforce? You're time crunched, I need a report, I need to get data out of the system. It's okay, it's common that you may not know your way around the system. That's perfectly fine. There's no reason to fret when you come in and try to look for data. It's very simple to pull out, but once again, it's just a matter of what format, or is the system providing you the format that you were requesting. So from a concept of reporting, keep in mind that everything starts off of the home screen in Blueforce, and over on the very far right, you're going to have the option for an icon for reporting. Now, when you go into the actual Blueforce system and you see the screen, keep in mind that this middle row that everyone has access to seeing, this middle row is kind of the process of Blueforce, kind of how things go. Now, we don't have nothing to do with employees and jobs directly. Those come in from J.D. Edwards. But the first thing we mess with in Blueforce is time cards. Then we go to timesheets. Then we run the payroll, go into the payroll module, some of us do, to actually process payroll. And the very last thing that can come out of this or is available for us is now reporting. So you've got that little middle row is kind of the whole general process flow of the system. So when you go in and click on that reports icon, you're going to be taken into the reports module. By default, the system will automatically show you the time cards report right here in the middle of the screen. So all this little stuff right here in the middle is all the time card report by default. But on the left-hand side, you'll see you have ability to see all the different links that are available for reports. Now, if you go through here, all these reports, over 20 reports, canned reports are available for you that you can actually go in there and run at any point to your liking. Now, all these reports, well, I'm going to say all of them, but just about all of them are available to everybody on this phone call. So all editors, submitters, and approvers. There are a handful of reports out there that are only going to be available for the approver, and I'll explain that here a little bit further down in our call. But going through here, you'll see there's different sections. There's a time card section, there's a timesheet section, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the sections you'll see here in the middle that I'll circle real quick is called System and Usage and Archived. And I will guarantee you'll probably have no reason to be in those reports. Now, there are reports that you can run, but they're probably not going to provide you anything of really value. From a basic reporting standpoint, the reports that you want to mess with are the time cards, timesheet reports, and I'll talk about ad hocs here a little bit later down the road at the very bottom of the list. But nevertheless, these are your basic reports. Now, for our criteria today, and kind of for, like I said, for the sake of time, we're going to go through 4 key reports. These 4 reports, we're going to focus on the time card report. We're going to focus on the time card audit report. We're going to focus on the time card attendance report. And then lastly, we're going to go through a report called hours by rate type. Then from that, I'm going to show you some other ways of exporting data and getting other information that will be beneficial, just as good as a report from other parts of the Blueforce system. So one thing I will mention to everybody, all these reports are predicated on you going in there and putting some selections, but these selections cannot be more than a 93-day period. So many of you have given me this expression on your computers when you try to run a reporting around, you try to pull up data, and you get this nice little message on the right-hand side. You cannot view the data more than 93 days. That is a system setting, and unfortunately, that's something that no one here on the ePay team can adjust. So it's not saying that you can't run a report. It's just saying that your report range can't be greater than 93 days. So to that, if you're running a report that's for a year in time, you'll actually have to run it 4 times. You'll run January through March, and then you'll maybe do a April through June, and then a July through September, then October to November, and then those are perfect time frames that'll match this 93-day criteria. So just don't fret. Don't give us that look like this gentleman does on this computer right now. So the first report, like I mentioned, is our time card report. And a time card report is one of the basic reports in the system, and I think all of you will want to run this at some point in time. It's a good report. It gives you some very basics looking at the employees' time cards. Now, the question I always ask everyone when I talk about a time card report is this. Would you like to have a report that will show you what work order an employee worked at? Or would you want to know the caller ID that the employee actually punched in from? Or even would you like to see the actual time butted up right next to the rounded time so you can actually see it side by side? If any of these questions are yes, any of the answers are yes for any of these questions, then this is the actual report that you'd want to use. The time card report is a report that's very fluid, and that's going to provide you detail on the employee's daily punches, and it's going to provide you detail in several different ways. And all these different ways I'll show you momentarily are going to be based on filters and selections that you can actually select. One thing I will tell you about this report and any report, do not be afraid to run it. You're not going to break the system. You're not going to download something you don't want. It's perfectly fine. Go in there and mess around with the reports. Get it familiar with it, because I guarantee you there'll be some information that'll be beneficial to you. The bottom line, this report and most of the reports, like I said, are going to be available to all Blueforce users, and then this report is exportable. So the time card report, I tried to do a quick snapshot of it. And if you look on the left-hand side, you're going to see some sections I All right, sorry about that. We're experiencing some storms, and I think we may just had a little flash and knock me off the phone system, so I apologize. But this first report we're looking at is the time card report. Now, the time card report allows you to go through and kind of see these fields that I've check marked at the top of the screen by default. Now, these fields are going to be available for every report. And the way the time card report works is you can actually go through any of these fields I've check marked and adjust them. So if you want to adjust those different filters that are available for you. So this first section I've cordoned off, step 1, will show you all the options for your jobs. So if I want to go in there and say all selected jobs, that's going to go off of all the jobs that I have selected when I first logged into Blueforce. So if there are 20 different jobs I want to work with, then I can select all 20. But I just want to go in here after the fact and say, you know what, I may have selected 20 jobs when I logged in, but I only want to work with one. Then I can hit that drop down and only pick one job off that list. Same thing with the employees. Then you have the date from and date to field where you have a date range you want to work with for the time card report. And then the big one here is the rate type. Now sometimes the question that comes up is, maybe I only want to see everybody who worked vacation or who got earned vacation on a certain day. So in that case, I can actually go down to rate type, pick that drop down list, and pick only vacation. And it's only going to run that report. It's going to show me those that had vacation on a certain day. This report actually, for that purpose and purpose alone, would be a good way of checking off, making sure everyone got paid the certain rate type. So just keep that in mind. There's a couple different options there when it comes to this particular report. But bottom line, once you put your filters in, you click on Submit, which is located on the very far right top corner of this particular selection screen. And the system will then return the report down below. Now, this report actually will show you, like I said, the job. It's called job ID, which is the job number, the name of the job, the date. Obviously, the date's going to be based on the date range up above, the employee ID, the employee name, and then the rate type that employee worked for that particular time. Now, when you're looking at that report, you're saying, right, well, that's good and all, but I need to know the punch times or the hours they work, because it doesn't tell me anything. It just tells me date and it tells me name and job. That's all it's telling me. And that's perfectly fine. So in those particular cases where it's showing, you have label number 2, additional fields that are available for you to go in there and mess around with. So maybe I want to add the task to the report. I can just check that box. Maybe I want to add the work order. I can just check that box. Maybe I want to add the actual hours the employee worked. You can check that box. Maybe I want to see the phone number that the employee called in from. Again, check that box. All of these are good examples of actually of going in there and putting that in there. There's one thing here called assets. And I don't like the word assets there, but assets is nothing more than the time clock that someone actually used to punch in. It gives you the time clock ID as far as the punch goes. So you have some information that you can go in here and check those boxes, come over and click on that submit again, and the system will update that information with more columns down below. And then you'll be able to see that on a nice little report. Now, the cool thing about this report is once you are done, you have the ability now of going in there and essentially deleting or wiping out the it's not wiping out, but actually go in there and deleting and wiping out any selection criteria until you get the report you want. Hit submit again, and it will just keep refreshing that view for you. When you're already done, you can actually go down and actually go in and select the format, pick a option to go in there and export this report into like a PDF or even a Excel format, and then from there you have it that you can now share with others. You can save it off. You can do whatever you need to do with that particular report. But this is the time card report. And like I said, good report whenever you have an opportunity that you want to see everyone who got paid a certain rate type. I think that's the best benefit of this one. But generally, it'll just show you a listing of all the different reports. I mean, all the time punches as part of this report. Now, the third option up here says sort by. So you can actually have it sort a variety of different ways. Maybe I want it to sort by job, so you can see all my punches over here by job. Or I can see all my punches as it is right now by employee. So you can kind of see Oscar worked, I don't know what he did here, but he worked 2 days, or has 2 time card lines, But if I add additional information here, I can see that he actually has something going on here, whether it be hours, work order, tasks. I can see the difference here. That's why it's showing up twice. But the time card report is going to list every time an employee records a time card. So once again, I would implore everyone to go ahead and give it a shot and go out there and try this report on their own. Another report that's out there is kind of a basic report. It's our time card audit report. Now, we've always made a lot of I've had a lot of discussion about audits recently, about how it's important that we go out and keep track and watch, what's going on exactly with our punches. Make sure people aren't making undue changes and corrections there, to the employee's time, etc. This is a good report to run. Now, typically when I talk from an audit standpoint, I talk about Hubble reports. We'll talk about that at the end of our call today. But this one's actually right here in Blueforce. So if you're ever concerned that your ePay compliance time change is too low, or if you ever can ask yourself, are you worried that your supervisors are making undue changes or unneeded changes to your employee time? This report alone is going to provide you that view of all that detail with all the changes that have bin made. I'll give you a little blurb as to why that reason code or why that change was made, but also tell you, tell you who made those changes, so you actually know, pinpoint specifically. It was Christian that made that change. It was John that made that change. It was Tiandra that made that change. You've got different names that are out there. You also is going to reflect the date and time as part of that, so you can go out there and see when that change was made and in relation to the actual punch. Once again, this report is available to all users and is also exportable to everybody. So kind of going from that, this is kind of a general view of that report. Once again, you do have some filters that are available. And you notice the color to this report. It looks like very similar to your time card screen. The cool thing about this report is if you choose to export it, it's going to export it with all the color, all the notations. It's going to let you know that you've got some concerns there that you need to address. Now, if I go through here, the top of the screen is very similar. I have some filters that I can determine what I want to see or don't want to see. But more specifically, obviously the job, the employee, date ranges, and then the source is different on this one. This one gives me the ability to tell the system, I want to see all my punches, or I only want to see those that came from the Walters devices, only want to see the ones that came from phone in, only the ones that came from mobile punch, whatever it may be. But you have those criteria up there. And then once you're done, you can hit search. Now when I do search, it's going to show me that report down here at the bottom of the screen that I'm scribbling all over. And then the other option is to export to Excel, which means I can now just export this to Excel. Now, I think one of the difficult things about the reports is Blueforce, when they created this report, they made each report a little different. So you notice that the screen at the top is a little different. The selection criteria is different. The way you export is a little different. And that might lend to a little confusion of running it. But please don't back away just because it's a little odd or confusing. The ePay team here will be happy to assist you with using these reports. Now, if you hit search, it's going to pull up that report down the bottom. The cool thing about this is just going to show you the time card lines initially. You'll see the different colorations and items that are available. But one thing I will point out to you is over here on the left-hand side, you have little arrows that are pointing. I was going to check and mark them. Little black arrows, and these little black arrows are just basically letting you know that there are some time cards there that have audit activity. And the ones that have arrows, you'll notice if you follow the line across, you will see that they have audit activity because time was either created for them, time was either edited on them, something has changed on these records. So to that, if you just want to see this report on the screen, you can click on those little arrows, and it's going to actually expand that line for you and show you all the audit detail. So for example, if I wanted to expand on, let's say, J. Crude Porters, this would actually now allow me to see the detail behind, what occurred here under overtime. And on here, I'll see a couple lines just pop up in here, show me all the details, showing me, that Joe's record was, he first clocked in at 10 o'clock and 10 p.m. Then someone made a change to 22:30, which is 10:30, and then someone changes rate type to overtime from regular, etc. So you kind of see the detail behind that punch. Now, there's some optional punch at the top of the screen. which says, you know what, maybe from the perspective of audit, I only want to see 0 punches or only want to see open punches. And to that, then you have the ability of checking those and limiting your report search or criteria. As I mentioned, once you're done and you got the report the way you like it, if you want to export that out, then you go to the very top of the screen, click on Export to Excel, and that'll ship it over into open up Excel for you and actually create a nice report showing you the audit detail behind this particular time card view. So once again, this report works the same way. It's editable. I mean, it's exportable, and it's available to all Blueforce users. And once again, that was the time card audit report. Now, the next report that I'll go through is a report that is not often used, but it actually has some good benefits. From an audit perspective, we talked about you could see kind of changes made to time records. But from an audit perspective, you don't know if an employee actually showed up to work on time. You don't know real quick if an employee actually was, maybe left late, or maybe an employee came in on a day he or she was not scheduled to work. Now, the attendance report is a report that I will tell you before we go into it. It works best when you pair it up with the employee schedules module. The scheduling module in the system ties perfectly well into this, because if you schedule someone to work on a certain day, they're going to be linked to a certain shift on a certain day, and that's part of the schedule. And this report will then return and provide you detail, as in if that person actually clocked in late, clocked in early, stay longer than their normal shift, a whole bunch of different reasons you can quickly determine off of this report. So the question I always ask when I talk about this report is, do you want to make sure that your employees are working the schedule they were assigned? So this report is going to provide you a daily view and status of each employee, and it's going to provide that details to the shift worked and whether or not that employee was scheduled to work, didn't take lunch, called off, and maybe took PTO instead, etc. So you kind of have a history of what's going on there. Now, attendance report would come in very handy whenever you have a discussion, a disciplinary discussion with your employee. Why are you coming in 10 times? Out of the last 30 punches you've created, 10 of them you were late, and or maybe the last 5 punches you came in 30 minutes early. What's going on? So you have an attendance report. But once again, it works best when you pair it up with the Blueforce scheduling module. It's available to all Blueforce users, and it is exportable as well. So the report looks very similar to this down below. Now, one thing that quickly draws your attention when you see the report is a nice coloration under the status column, the very far left-hand column. That field is there for your reference, where you can actually see what happened with that employee. So you'll see no-shows, you'll see unschedules, you'll see early outs, you say early ins, late outs, PTOs, waiting for in-punch, all the different status that are available as part of a time card punch. Now, you'll also be able to see right off the bat what shift that employee worked. So typically, if you have a shift assignment in Blueforce scheduling, it'll actually pull it in there. It'll tell you the time in, tell you the time out. In this case, the employee has some issues on that for a particular line, and give you total hours as well to be available for you. Now, the way this works, same selection criteria at the very top of the screen, where you're going to be able to go in there and run it for a specific job or employee, status, date range. Click search. That populates the bottom of the screen. And if you need to, you can always go back and say, you know what, I don't want to look at everything. From an attendance standpoint, I only want to look at lunches only. So what that means, it's only going to pull up those scenarios where lunch was taken. Or more specifically, go out there and look at raw punches, the actual employee punch. So instead of seeing the rounded time down at the bottom of the screen, so if you look down below, you'll see that this employee was at 1800 until 2200, which basically is 6 to 10 for 4 hours. But maybe you want to see that he actually clocked in at, instead of 1800, he was 1805, and the system rounded it back to 1800. Or you want to see that he clocked out early, and he actually clocked out at 2153, and then it rounded up to 10 o'clock. So that's the option for raw punches. Or tasks, you want to see what tasks they work. This, once again, is an attendance report. Now, you can run it without using the Blueforce schedule. That's perfectly fine. That's not going to hurt anything. The only thing is the status column would be a little bit more meaningful to you if you actually did use Blueforce scheduling. And once again, this is called the attendance reports, and it's also located under the reports module. The next report is going to be another nice one that I like running because it's going to give me my hours by rate type. Now, occasionally, you want to maybe ask or use it as a checklist. This is probably, earlier when we did the time card report, I kind of mentioned that you could use the time card report as a checklist when you want to see if someone had taken vacation or a certain PTO type. This report may be a little bit more helpful in that it's a little less noisy. There's not that much stuff on the screen, but you can actually get the same benefit. So hours by rate type, the question there is, do you want to verify everyone got vacation pay on a certain day? Or you want to make sure that everyone got a certain type of rate type or pay that certain day? Nevertheless, this report is going to provide you a look at the hours worked by rate type. It's going to give you the it's going to be available to all Blueforce users, and it's exportable as well. So this report, looking at it down below, gives you a lot of information. Now, this report looks at your security, obviously, and notice on the very far right, I have some fields that are blanked out. These fields here are blanked out because it shows pay rates. If you have access to pay rates as a submitter and approver, you will be able to see this field on the screen, just like it is here. Obviously, it won't be blacked out. If you are an editor or a submitter that doesn't have access to pay rates, then this field will not even be on the screen. It will not be available for you whatsoever. But once again, that is the pay rate field, just so you know that's there. But this report will give you by rate type, and you'll see that the rate type field is there. You can actually go and see all the different rate types that were used on a given day. Now, in this example, I have regular and lunch, but maybe you want to go and see all the different lunches that were used or taken by the employee. Now, since this runs off the time card, you got to keep in mind that the lunches for a time card view only appear when an employee punches in and out on their own. So for that matter, lunches will only work when an employee punches in and out on their own from a time card view. Since this one's actually an hours by rate type, I'm going to take that back, what I just said. This is actually directly under the time cards menu on the report. So this is actually going to show the employee's final entry time. So all the hours there around it, as you would expect from a timesheet perspective. And then the rate type obviously is also there. So you can actually go through and use the filters at the top of the screen and say, you know what, I only want to see lunches, or I only want to see vacation. I only want to see those times when I use snow pay as my rate type. I only want to see those scenarios where an employee took sick leave. You can run that rate type report any way, shape, form. Same thing, if you look at the top of the screen, same criteria as before. You only have the sort options at the top. So I can sort by employee, I can sort by ascending or descending. I can sort, I think it's employee, date, task, or job. So you got a couple of variations there. But this I would use as a checklist, because now you have a checklist to confirm that you paid everybody that vacation that's due. So maybe some of us are off on Friday and you have a Good Friday as a holiday at some of your sites. Maybe not. But for this example, it is. So we go through, we can go through and make sure all the vacations are added for those people that are due vacation that day, or maybe do holiday worked or holiday non-worked that day, and then go through and make sure that the system actually picked it up by running a report instead of going one by one to each individual timesheet and time card. Now, with all of the reports that I've shown here, these are 4 basic reports. I'm going to leave it at these 4 basic reports for the time being. But these 4 reports all run kind of very similar. And I will tell you that you have that 90-day, 93-day time frame in all these reports. But the key thing to keep in mind is you can actually go back to the beginning of Blueforce being used at your job site and actually run the reports from day 1 to now. Now, for those that are on the phone call from our San Antonio office, they were actually the lucky ones that actually started Blueforce first. And they're coming up, they've been on about 2.5 years now, I guess it is. So in that particular time frame, you can actually go back to 2014 if you wanted to and see time punches that were recorded then. If you just started last week, then obviously you're just going to have time from last week. But bottom line, you have the ability to go back as far as the infancy of the system. So those are the 4 reports I'm going to focus on for this particular call, and we're going to move on into exporting of data. Now, there's a report out there, and I'll mention this at the end. If there's a report, or you're wondering if there's a report that does a certain function or provides you a certain piece of information, please ask us and let us know, and we can get back to you and find out that answer and kind of research it. And if we need to, I'll mention at the end of the call that we are happy to always create a report for you if we are told that you need a report. So we can actually work with you. But keep in mind that the report data that we can provide is only what's in ePay. So we can't go out there and pull in a benefits for you. We can't go in there and pull in any information that is JDE specific. But other than that, most information can be pulled out as far as time worked, punches, stuff like that, we can get out of Blueforce. So the next 2 pieces I want to talk about here, next 2 sections, are related to exporting of data. Now, everyone knows that you can actually, at any point in Blueforce, you can go through and take the data that's on the grids or on the views that you see and export those out into an Excel format. Now, typically Excel does respond pretty well and does allow you to go out and you know, pull out the report in a certain format. Sometimes Excel obviously doesn't come out quickly, but you can go ahead and run this report, and it's run a report, like for example, make sure having a report, but run your data in the system, and then go out there and just export it out when needed. And the very first one is the Timecard. Timecard, I bring this up because you can always go in the Timecard and export this data as a quick report. Now, per se, it's not a Blueforce report, quote unquote, but it gives you the data that you're looking for. The data, the Timecard report you saw earlier, is formatted a little differently, has the same information, just 2 different spots. So typically, since we're working in the Timecard view all the time, we can always go in here and just simply click on Export to Excel, and whatever's in the current grid there is going to export in that same format. So you're going to see the nice coloration. You're going to see the status field says timesheet is open. Just like you see it here is how it's going to appear in Excel. So keep that in mind. You have the ability at any point from any of the grids to click on the option to export to Excel, and it's going to send it out and provide you a quick report in essence. The timesheet view is very similar as well. Now, the timesheet view, it's a little different in that you don't have the Export to Excel button, but you have an option that says Export Summary or Export Details. Bottom line, Blueforce uses the word export. You can actually export that item somewhere else. So once again, timesheet view, Export Summary, and Export Details are the 2 options that are available for you. Now, these options are located at the very top right-hand corner of the timesheet grid. And when you go into that, keep in mind that the summary and details are going to be 2 different reports, and I'm kind of doing the air quotes here. They're 2 different reports because one of them is going to provide you kind of the timesheet view as you see it right now at the bottom of the screen. So if I go and click on Export Summary right now, what the system is going to do is going to export this view down here at the bottom for you into Excel format. I would say if you're going to spend the time, if that's what you only want to see summary, then you're good to go. But if you want to see the detail behind it, just as if I were to go in here and click on any of these jobs and actually open up the timesheet to see the detail, you know, who worked, what tasks they worked, how many hours they work each day, that is the other export option at the very top there. So if I want to do export details, that will export the detail out of my timesheets. So you'll be able to go in there and see who clocked in, what day, how many hours they worked on a certain day. You'll be able to see what tasks they worked, any work orders assigned to it, total hours, total pay, etc. From the detail perspective. If you are an approver or a submitter that has access to pay rates, then obviously you will see pay information. This view shows some pay information back here. Obviously, if you have access to pay rates, you see that. If you don't, you don't. But you can still run this report. If you don't have access to those pay rates, you can still run it. You just won't see them populate as part of your report itself. The cool thing about this is, you know, you have the export summary, you have the export details, you have a lot of information flowing on the screen from a timesheet perspective, And then you go through here, you'll see, you have your open statuses, you have your open punches, you have your date ranges, you see the hours broken out by task. You have a lot of stuff going on. But at the top right-hand corner there, when you do the export details, it's going to actually take all that information, or export summary, sorry, one of the two, and populate this into a report for you. So that way now you can share that timesheet with others. Maybe you don't have access to Blueforce. You can actually go in there and email it, whatever you need to do, save it off. You have that information. The only thing I would tell you is if you're going to save it off, let's get to a point where everything is updated on statuses. We don't have any opens or something sitting out there as unapproved, because if you do, then that report's pretty much going to mean nothing, because open status just lets you know that you can continue to work with that timesheet until it is submitted. So that's the two options that I would say if you're ever thinking about exporting data out of Blueforce, you use one of those, either the timesheet export summary, export details here, or go back to the time card and hit export to Excel. Now I'm going to go back to another report, but I call it required reporting. Now for those on the phone call that are approvers, this is your report. This is what I'm going to focus on you. Unfortunately, the submitters and editors cannot run this report because of system access, but the approvers can. And this is actually, I call it a required report, because everyone should be making it a point to run this report every week or every other week, depending on when your pay period ends. But before you submit, so before you tell corporate payroll that you are complete with your payroll, because the payroll register report is going to give you a little brief look at, kind of what is everyone getting paid, how many hours, all the kind of basic stuff you need to kind of sign off and accurately say, yep, I looked at my payroll, it's good to go. So some highlights of this report, like I said, it should always be run by the approver, should always be a key step in the process, and it's found in the payroll module. It's another reason why editors and submitters can't run this, because approvers have access into that payroll module. And then you can actually go in there and see who's ready for payroll and who's not ready. That alone is the most important piece here. Payroll register report will allow you to see a listing of all your employees, and if anyone says not ready for payroll, that means there's an issue somewhere with that employee's timesheet. Maybe that timesheet hasn't been submitted, maybe there's another issue somewhere along the line, but bottom line, if they're not ready for payroll and we go ahead and proceed with the process of processing payroll, that employee risks the chance of not getting paid and being left behind. So this report will tell you that right off the bat. It's going to provide you the hours and dollars to be paid, so the gross pay. And it's also going to give you two yeses. It's going to make sure that you have all your employees are set to export. It's going to tell you, make sure that all your employees are active. If you see no's in there, that means you're going to have a problem, because an inactive employee's time will not transfer, and an employee who's not set to export from Blueforce will not transfer to JD Edwards. But bottom line, this report is exportable. But the main thing, the key take from this is this report is a required step that should be run by every approver prior to them approving. Report is very similar. Under the payroll module, you'll go over the left-hand column, you'll pick on payroll register reports, and then you'll be able to see some criteria. You put your date ranges. This one runs differently. This one actually wants you to, I'm trying to draw it here, there we go. Select a pay group. So one thing that's a little different from here, it's really validating that your date range here, which should be your pay period range, corresponds to the pay group that you're actually selecting down below. So notice the key dates that are in the screen. If I do the 13th through the 19th, the system is going to return all the pay groups that I have access to see based on with those dates involved. And I can go through here and see that I have some possible time issues with those two particular groups. Now, when I go through there, the report's going to actually now run my report, and it's going to provide me the report where I show you the hours and dollars that we're going to be paid, which is gross pay. And it's going to provide me the current status. And remember, if it says not ready for payroll, that means it's not ready because it hasn't been submitted, hasn't been approved, there's something going on there, and those employees and their time, associated time, run the risk of not getting over into JDE to be paid. So we have to keep that in mind. But bottom line, this is a payroll register report. It kind of gives you a breakdown of what an employee did, how many hours, etc. Now, after you run all these different reports, or maybe you get the opportunity to export data, and you still go through and ask yourself, what if I still need a report? Maybe the reports that have been suggested to me are not the reports I need. Maybe I need a different format. You know, all the different reasons you can think of. What if I still need a report? Well, don't be like that young lady on the picture earlier, with pulling her hair out. If you still can't find the information you asked for, or maybe I didn't go over it on this particular call so far, do me a favor. You contact the IT Pay team, and that's either myself, Tiandra, Beth, or Jade, and the one of us will be able to go in there and look at your help desk ticket you submitted, or you can call the help desk phone number, and that help desk ticket can be created for you. But when you do that, provide a specific detail as your expectations. If we can get as much detail from you the very first time you submit the help desk ticket, it makes it easier for all of us and a lot quicker turnaround, and kind of instead of going back and forth as to what you need. But put in the fields you need, what order of the columns you want, any filters you need to be selected from, and then it wouldn't hurt if you can maybe do a mock-up drawing of the report. Maybe it'll help us understand and maybe help you convey that message as to what you need. But we can create that report for you and actually put it onto the menu. Now, when you create it on the menu, there is a link called Ad Hoc Reporting at the bottom left hand corner of that reports menu. From there, I can actually go in there and make it available to you, and then you can go there and run it anytime you need. But it's called Ad Hoc Reporting, and it's just basically reports that we can actually create for you as needed. So this is going to all tie up now into Hubble reporting. So I showed you 4 basic reports. I showed you 2 ways of exporting data from the timesheet and timecard, and then kind of briefly touched on ad hoc reporting. Now the remaining part of this is Hubble reporting. What is that? Now many of you on this phone call who are district managers on up have access to Hubble reporting. And Hubble is a tool that is kind of, I guess I would say fairly new to us, but we've been on it for slightly about a year, almost just about a year now, in which it actually allows us to utilize data from ePay, data from JDE and other programs to actually put together into a nice reporting format. That really it's really just a tool that's going to provide you a different look at your data, or provide you a you know, kind of a different perspective, I guess you can say, on how a job is doing, or what employees are punching in incorrectly, a variety of different reports and stuff that we've created. So Hubble reporting, like I mentioned, is a new performance management suite that utilizes JD and ePay to offer us additional tools in reporting. Now the big good example there is most of you on this phone call have access to the ePay compliance dashboard and the monthly labor forecast. Now if you don't have access to those, or you probably don't have access to Hubble, keep in mind that we do make it available to all of our general managers, all of our district managers, all of our operations team members, and all of our office admins as needed, and requested via DocuWare, which is on the ISS Gateway site. And that is our intranet site that we have a link up there from the home page. It's simply labeled as DocuWare, a little tab. When you go there, you can locate the specific form you need. One of those forms is requesting Hubble access. And this is a direct link to that Hubble access form right here. Once you fill it out, you fill it in, all the information you need requesting the access, and you hit submit. That submit button will actually send it off to our Hubble team, and they will actually go in there and set you up with access to Hubble. Now, I must say that if you have access to Hubble, you actually have to have access, although you may not use JD Edwards, but you still need access to JDE to have access to Hubble. So you kind of need access to the platform or the format wherever the data is coming from. So once again, you may have access to it, but you don't necessarily log into it. That's perfectly fine. We just need to request the access and we go from there. Now, we are going to offer some webinars. There are some new exciting features on the employee ePay compliance dashboard, and as well as the monthly labor forecast that will be rolling out here. And when we do all that, we'll be offering webinars to get everyone up to speed. But bottom line, Hubble is a cool tool. Allows you to see a variety of different pieces of information in different formats, different cross sections, etc. So kind of wrapping up our call, I want to make this short and sweet. I want to make sure we go through and just give you an insight of some of the reports that are available for you. Next week, we're going to be continuing our webinar series. We're going to actually explore the job record. So we're going to take a little step back away from time again and go into the job record and go through and review how the job records are established, kind of go through the J.D. Edwards process, how it gets to Blueforce, and then go through some of the job setups, how do you get phone in, how do you get mobile punch, how do you get web punch, how do the Walters set up, kind of see the behind the scenes stuff. And more than likely, we'll go through some pay differential setups as well, kind of go through and show you how we do pay differential in the system. But anything to do with the job record, we're going to talk about next week. So as always, thank you for joining me today. Please join us again, like I said, next Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, as we continue our Mastering Blueforce, the weekly series. Until then, have a good rest of the work week, and we'll catch you again next week.